Have you ever looked at your bank account a week or two after payday and thought, wait, where did all my money go? You got paid, you paid the bills, you bought groceries, you probably didn't buy anything crazy, and somehow your money is just gone. If that sounds familiar, I want you to know something. You might not have a spending problem. You might have a money leak problem. And today, we're going to find the leaks. Because sometimes it's not the big purchases destroying our finances. It's the little things happening quietly over and over again. Welcome back to Asset and Tea. This is where we talk about building wealth in a way that actually fits real life. Because we're not all starting with six-figure salaries and perfectly organized budgets. Some of us are working full-time, raising kids, paying mortgages, buying groceries that somehow cost more every week, and trying to build a future at the same time. So today, let's talk about something incredibly common. Why does your paycheck disappear so quickly? And more importantly, what can you actually do about it? This one is sneaky, because lifestyle inflation doesn't usually happen overnight. You get a pay rise, and suddenly you can afford slightly better groceries, a nicer phone, more dinners out, a few more subscriptions, more convenience. Then another pay rise comes along, and your lifestyle expands again. Nothing feels outrageous. That's the problem. You don't feel like you're spending extravagantly, but your expenses keep rising alongside your income. So you earn more, and somehow you still have nothing left. The fix isn't necessarily to go backwards. Instead, try this. When your income increases, decide in advance where the extra money will go. Maybe half goes toward your future. Maybe some goes toward enjoying the increase. But don't let your entire pay rise quietly become your new cost of living. Now, I love convenience. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I make everything from scratch every night. Sometimes you are tired. Sometimes work was insane. Sometimes the easiest option is the only option. But convenience becomes expensive when it becomes your default. Takeaway because you're tired. Delivery because you don't want to drive. Uber because you're running late. Pre-cut food because it's easier. Another online order because you need one thing, and suddenly you've bought 5. None of these purchases feel significant, but together, they can become a serious monthly expense. So here's the question I'd ask. Am I paying for convenience occasionally, or am I paying for convenience constantly? You don't need to eliminate it. Just become aware of it. This one is almost invisible because subscriptions are designed to be painless. $9.99, $14.99, $19.99. It doesn't feel like much until you realize you're paying for streaming, apps, cloud storage, fitness, music, memberships, and services you completely forgot you signed up for. The problem isn't one $10 subscription. It's the fact that the money leaves your account without requiring a new decision from you. So once every few months, do something very simple. Open your bank statement, look for every recurring payment, and ask, would I sign up for this again today? If the answer is no, cancel it. This one is controversial because, yes, you are allowed to buy the coffee. I'm not here to tell you that a $5 coffee is why you're not wealthy. It isn't. The problem is when small treats become a daily financial habit. Coffee, lunch, a little online purchase, a beauty product, a snack, a random Target, Kmart, Temu, whatever purchase. None of them individually matters much, but if you're spending $15 or $20 a day without really thinking about it, that's different. And here's where I don't want you to feel guilty. Instead, track it. Not forever, just for 1 week. Don't change anything. Just write down every little purchase. You might be surprised by what you discover. This one is the big one. Sometimes the problem isn't that we're spending too much, it's that we're saving whatever's left. And unfortunately, there's rarely much left. You get paid, you spend, you pay bills, you handle life. And then you look at what's left and think, I'll save that. But the amount left is usually tiny. So I'd flip the order. Instead of income, spending, whatever's left gets saved, try income, future you, bills, spending. Even if future you only gets $25 at first, make it automatic if you can. Because saving shouldn't depend on whether you had a particularly responsible month. Your future deserves to get paid too. Here's the thing. You don't need to completely overhaul your life tonight. You don't need to create a 47-category budget. And you don't need to stop enjoying your money. I'd start with one simple exercise. Take your last month's bank statement and divide your spending into 3 categories. Necessities, things you genuinely need. Joy, things you intentionally spend on because they make your life better. And leaks, things you barely remember buying, things you don't really value, things you wouldn't choose again. That's where I'd start, because the goal isn't to spend nothing. The goal is to make sure your money is going toward things you actually care about. And this is where things get interesting. Because when you find your leaks, don't just let that money disappear somewhere else. Give it a job. If you find $50 a month, maybe $25 goes toward your emergency fund. Maybe $25 goes toward investing. If you find $200, even better. The point isn't just to stop spending. It's to redirect your money toward the life you're trying to build. Because that's how wealth starts. Not necessarily with a huge salary, but with the gap between what you earn and what you actually need to spend. And then doing something productive with that gap. So the next time you look at your bank account and wonder, where did my paycheck go? Don't immediately blame yourself. Get curious. Look for the leaks. Look for the subscriptions. Look for the convenience spending. Look for the lifestyle creep. And most importantly, look at where your money is going without you consciously deciding. Because once you know where your money is going, you can finally decide where you want it to go. And that's when things start to change. Because building wealth isn't always about making more money. Sometimes it's about quietly keeping more of the money you already make. And that brings us to something I want to talk about next. Because there is a very different way of thinking about wealth. You don't always have to look wealthy to be building wealth. In fact, sometimes the people building the most wealth look surprisingly ordinary. So put the kettle on. We'll talk about that next. Until next time, keep building your assets.